Good morning and welcome to the Black Pill Radio Show. I'm your host, Mr. Tyler, and today we have a wonderful topic. We are talking to Black business owners and why we should support Black businesses. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but we will catch up soon. I have one caller on the line. The other two callers, you guys call back into the line, and then I'll put you guys right back into the segment. So call back in. Just call back in, and then I'll put you in. All right, so I have one caller on the line now. We're going to find out who that is, and then we're going to get into the topic. So who do I have on the line with me now?
Hi, this is Jamila Parham.
Hey, Jamila. I want you to introduce the audience to you and your business and what you do, and when the other callers come in, then we'll get them involved as well.
Okay, absolutely. So my name is Jamila Parham, and I am a project manager from 9 to 5. I do a lot of IT work and leadership with the Chicago Transit Authority. I've spent some time in the public sector, and I'm currently transitioning to a new exciting role at the City of Chicago in their Division of Innovation and Tech. But outside of my 9 to 5, I do STEM advocacy. So I advocate on behalf of women and students and minorities for resources and education and STEM careers because the presence and visibility of people of color and from diverse backgrounds is very critical to the future of technology. So I currently operate under the brand The Tech Unicorn, so that includes, attending panels and some exciting partnerships and one-on-one counseling and mentoring students. So I use my story of, being a Chicago native, coming from the south side of Chicago. There's always this stigma that, don't expect great things from the south side of Chicago, but, I make it, my business every day to, prove that negative impact, a false fact. So there are also some great idols out there that, I won't mention and go down a long list, but they're also doing the same thing. So I'm a proud South Sider, and I'm excited to be here today and discuss the importance of investing in Black businesses, supporting Black businesses, and making sure that we utilize the power of our dollar.
Thank you very much, Jamila. And I have somebody with a 602 area code. Introduce yourself and tell us about your business, please.
That is me. My name is Shantae Pelt. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. My name is Shantae Pelt, and I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona. I work full-time in pharmacy. I own a business called Cocoa Pie Clothing, which is a natural hair T-shirt line, actually inspired by my two daughters. We had an experience where one of my daughters seen a T-shirt. She thought it was her. She wore the shirt to no end, and I went back out trying to find things similar to that, and that's when I discovered there was a huge gap in representation of children of color, specifically Black children, in apparel. So I decided to create something myself in her likeness and my other daughter's likeness. It's taken off. I've been featured in huge publications, and I've garnered a lot of support. In addition to that, both of my daughters, they are 11 and 7, and they also have an LLC called Ken and Kate Snow Cones. They sell shaved ice. So I'm extremely interested in supporting Black-owned business, being intentional, and that's really a passion of mine. So that's what I do pretty much in a nutshell.
Excellent, Shanta. So I want to start with Jamila. Why is it important to support each other's businesses as Black people? Because I know we just had Black Friday and Cyber Monday, and a lot of people were shopping at a lot of businesses and a lot of retail stores that are not Black-owned. And I don't know if that's a good thing when they're not supporting us. How do we keep our Black dollars circulating in our community? So why is it important for Black folks to shop and support small Black businesses? And what has been your experience in terms of Black people supporting your business? And that question was for Jamila.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I had the pleasure of joining the organization 40 Under 40, and we had an amazing conversation yesterday, and I think it applies to many facets of the issues we face today is pouring into those that pour into us. It's important that we invest our dollar in our own community to make sure that it flourishes. Especially we spend with other brands that don't support us, where we're not welcomed, and we don't know and don't utilize the power of our own dollar. So the direct investment back in our community, in our schools, and the businesses can uplift our community. And being Black, there is the issue of generational wealth. Is like, we got a late start. So we're playing catch up, and we have to make sure that we're investing in our businesses and those who support us, and making sure we're providing programs and services, and to also downplay the stigmas that seem to be circulating and not play into those, because there are excellent Black businesses out there. There are those who are willing to invest. It's just the importance of coming together and connecting, especially with the power of social media today, getting the word out. There are a lot of great organizations that are creating directories where it's easy to find, Black businesses that sell tissue paper and things like that. So I think it's the power of our platforms as well, making a conscious effort, even if it's, an extra couple miles just to make it to that Black business, to make sure that you are putting that effort forward to make sure that we invest in our own communities for our children and for those who are looking up to us and those who, in a sense, are following in our footsteps.
Good. So I want to ask Shantae the same question. Let's just deal with the recent week. So Black Friday, Cyber Monday. I don't know if you had any sales or discounts or anything like that, but you're selling clothing for young children. How was your business supported, and do you know the breakdown between Black people and others who supported your business? And tell us a little bit about that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part? You said, do I know the difference between the breakdown between what exactly?
Demographics of who were Black people supporting you versus white people, or you're not sure of the demographics when it comes to who supported you for Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
Oh, I actually do. With analytics and specifically like where people come from, and the visibility is huge. I do have a significant amount of people who are biracial customers that are increasing. Actually, white mothers that have interracial adoption, who are adopting Black children, is increasing. I wouldn't say it's the majority of my customers. It's probably about 10%. Yet initially when I started in 2011, it was pretty much primarily all Black customers. But I've seen Native Americans buy. I've seen people that have biracial children or are biracial themselves. I've had a lot of white mothers reach out, and they do this by email. They tell me specifically, I have a Black child, and I came across your business in a Facebook adoption page. So the diversity kind of surprised me, because I didn't expect that, especially this quickly, but it is growing. In terms of supporting Black-owned business, I agree with everything Jamila said, and I think people need to realize that supporting Black-owned business will strengthen our infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure in our communities that other communities have in terms of power, in terms of influence, and those dollars will go directly back into the community and help us to start programs, help us to open schools, and that'll have a direct reflection on crime, on poverty, on things that our communities suffer from more so than others. So it's extremely important.
So I want to bring Tony into the conversation. So Tony, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Good morning, everyone, and my name is Tony Robinson, and I own and operate a profitable child care center located in the south suburbs of Chicago. I employ about 25 people, and I have about 125 children in attendance. And in my opinion, having money to be in the Black community, it would make our community stronger, and it would also grow our economy. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned it, because I did chime in a little bit later, but other communities such as Jewish and Italians, they operate almost independently. And if they can see the value in it and what it does for their communities, then we should be able to do the same thing so that we can generate more jobs and different things like that in our communities. So I think it's extremely important that we do that. And it helps to fund, especially in my particular field, it helps to fund our mission, and that's to help these babies and get to them at a young age so they can, we can't have a decreased crime in the community.
Sounds good. So could you tell everybody about the school that you have?
Yeah, well, we serve about 5 different service areas, and we are a profitable child care center, and we provide nutritious meals and snacks. We have curriculums that are based to serve every age level, and we have highly trained, certified teachers and co-teachers. So, our motto is learning through love, and we do believe that even at an early age, children are teachable. It's not just teachable when they enter into elementary school and then high school. So we actually provide an educational space for them. We don't just babysit our children.
Excellent. And I'm going to get back into that in a minute. But I want to know, what are we doing as small black businesses to promote and market our businesses? Because a lot of times we have businesses, but we don't necessarily have those advertising dollars. Dollars are put into promotion. So what are some of the ways that other businesses out there can promote and advertise their businesses at a cost-effective level? And what are you guys doing to promote and advertise your businesses? And we'll start with Jamila.
I kind of alluded to it earlier, is the power of social media and so many platforms to reach so many, audiences, instantaneously. And also good old-fashioned word of mouth, just spreading the word about black businesses. I definitely utilize social media. I definitely leverage networks and being introduced to others, other organizations. Most importantly, partnerships as well, supporting each other, things like that, especially in the advocacy space. I've done some work with Paige and Paxton and Blue 1647. So, in a sense, definitely uplifting others and, utilizing the ways that others advertise. So, I would say, my number one is social media.
All right, social media. So, Shantae, are you using strictly social media, or are there other ways you're using your advertising dollars?
Not just strictly social media, but I think that's definitely a given. I do use social media. It's cost effective and it's really easy. However, I do a lot of ads, Facebook advertising on Instagram, and I also get out and I go to different expos. You want to make yourself visible, and you actually want to touch the people and reach audiences that you may not necessarily reach, online, because there are demographics. I think there's this misconception that everybody's online and everybody is not. So, sometimes I'll go to natural hair expos, or I'll go to different events in the community, and I'll pass out cards, in the mall, or just when I'm out and about. I'll give out stickers and things of that such. And kind of like Jamila said, I'll cross-promote with other businesses that have a similar audience as mine. We'll do different things like that. I'll get in other areas that may not necessarily be, checking for a business like mine, but they're still a potential customer. So I try to utilize cross-promoting, social media, in-person marketing, kind of just organic marketing, people that I meet, people that I see, all different avenues.
All right. And Tony, how do you get the word out about your business?
And I have to agree with her, and I don't know if this is just, strategic marketing for most small businesses, but every platform that she mentioned is also platforms that I utilize and take advantage of as well. Social media is a great tool. I post things about my facility And then also I'm a part of a few networking communities here in Chicago. Just recently I was inducted into the 40 Under 40 Young Women's Professional League and the 300 Chicago 300 Black Women initiative as well, where within that community we are sisterhood, so we promote each other businesses, and that's when my facility gets additional exposure. I do ads in the community papers, and then we also do boots to the ground type of marketing where we go out and we pass flyers out and we'll go door to door and we'll host summits, host them or attend them within our community where we would offer specials and registration is free. So, I do have to get extremely creative because when you are a small business, oftentimes you don't have a lot of funds to go towards marketing because you're trying to use those funds in other areas of your business. But, everything that she mentioned, I do a lot of cross-promoting too, and then I run specials with other businesses and then, have them advertise them on their page, and we'll do like a partnership where if you support if you register your child, you'll receive this particular discount on this service that someone else is offering. So, you have to really partner up and become visible in a lot of these different areas of marketing.
This is great. This is great information. So to our entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, listen up closely, take notes, because what these ladies are dropping are gems, and it's very important. So I know Jamil is involved heavily in tech. I have Shantae running a clothing company, and I have Tony running her own online, her own daycare. So, Tony, I know you have a physical building, so I'm going to come to you last. I'll start with Jamila. When it comes to tech, do you have an office, or is there a brick and mortar type of environment where people can come in and work with you, or is your tech services mostly online?
So I don't have a brick and mortar. I definitely am on the move. So I do align with a lot of organizations, incubators, and hubs that allow you to utilize spaces, and more importantly, Black-owned incubators. So I make sure that I have memberships there, like Blue 1647. So they offer a conference room space, for a couple hours a month, or they have different tiers. So I do a lot of one-on-ones there. I do utilize virtually, even if my customers are not here and clients are here in Chicago. So I don't usually operate, and I don't have an office, but I don't let that limit me. It's just utilizing the resources around me and partnering and using different virtual platforms like Zoom. So the sky's the limit when it comes with tech. And then you also want to have the one-on-one and FaceTime meetings. It's the best way to network in person. And, half of that is just showing up and having a conversation and connecting with someone. So that has worked well for me now.
So that sounds good. I mean, you bring up something that's very important, is that you don't necessarily need to have that traditional brick and mortar space. There are office spaces that you can rent. There are shared partnerships with spaces that you guys can rent as well, where you don't necessarily have to take care of all the bills and deal with property taxes and that kind of thing, but you can still provide a comfortable meeting space or a comfortable planning space for your clients, which is very good. So I want to take it next to Shantae. What is your operating space like?
Well, being that I do work full-time and that my line of apparel is an e-commerce business, the majority of my business is literally run from home or, as she mentioned, remote locations. I can go to the library and I can work. I can go to spaces with Wi-Fi and I can work. I can schedule content. There's so many platforms now to where you can work smarter. You don't necessarily have to work hard. You don't necessarily have to be stressed out to run a business. Now, there's going to be some trials and some things that are going to be difficult and some stress, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So the majority of my business, like I said, I can work from home the majority of the time. I can work from different locations. I can go to the library and work, and it's pretty easy for me. And then in addition to that, they have so many options now, like VAs, and to anyone that's not familiar in the audience, like virtual assistants, to where you can pay people, and it's cost-effective now to do different things for you, to manage your social media or to manage your email, or to post things for you, or to answer questions, or to be your customer service online. And I've tapped into many different resources so that I can balance my business life and my personal life.
More great advice for you entrepreneurs out there and you aspiring entrepreneurs. Definitely take advantage of the virtual assistants. It's cost effective, as Shantae said. And even if you're working a 9 to 5, just like Shantae, that doesn't stop you and that shouldn't deter you from setting up your own business and going as far as you can go with it. You're going to have to make some sacrifices. Personal life, as Shantae mentioned, might suffer a little bit in terms of hanging out, spending extra income, going out. But if you want your business to survive and strive, and if you want to be able to quit that 9 to 5 and support your own self just strictly through your business, like Tony, and we're going to get into that, you definitely got to put those sacrifices in. So, Tony, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I want you to answer the first one first, and then I'll get into the second one. What is your operating space like?
My operating space, I have a 13,000 square foot facility. And so it's a pretty large facility, which is a gift and a curse. I have plenty of space where I'm able to enroll and teach many children, but my overhead is huge as well. So that's the gift and a curse. But I have 12 classrooms, 7 bathrooms, a huge kitchen. My operating space is pretty big.
And that was part 2. So part 2 of my question is, you don't have to tell us numbers, but just in terms of operating costs, property taxes, rent, water, gas, heat, whatever you may be paying, like for those entrepreneurs who want that brick and mortar for whatever services they're going to be providing, whatever products they're going to be selling, what do they have to know when it comes to getting a building?
Oh, Lord, it is a huge undertaking, and you have to be financially stable and fiscally smart. It's more important to me to pay my staff than it is for me to get paid oftentimes. But you just got to go into it knowing that, and it does depend on the space that you have, because, again, I have a pretty large facility, so of course my overhead is tremendous. Just to give you an example, I pay a monthly water bill, and sometimes my water bill will range from $600 a month to $1,500 a month, depending on different times of the year. So that's just to give you an example of how large. So you have to go in there knowing, what it is that you're getting yourself into, and that will be oftentimes determined by the amount of space that you have. And I went in there negotiated. You must have an attorney when you're negotiating your lease. I have a lease. So it was in my opinion, I wanted to rent because I didn't want to pay property taxes on a building that large. And so I pay a portion of property taxes. So I had to have an attorney who could maximize my funds every month and negotiate certain things within my lease. I have an accountant who is also a master at what he does, and he assists me greatly because, I have to make sure I have certain processes and procedures in order so that I won't be on the losing end month after month. And it's difficult when you're starting up a business, that is a brick and mortar business, when you have certain responsibilities every month when you're starting up, and you may not have the money that's coming in right away, but you still have to have these bills to be taken care of. So I had to go in there and I had to save. And I negotiated abatements in my lease and different things like that because I knew, and then I have the type of business that's operated on getting licensed in certain areas. So, I had to make sure that my abatements was smart so that I can begin to pay my lease when I received the certain certificates and certifications that I needed. So I would
leasing,
say make sure that yes.
So leasing versus owning. So my question is, if your landlord just decided your lease is up and they didn't want to renew the lease because they wanted to do something different with the property, what would happen to the business?
Well, the business, and that's the risk that you do take. So that is a risk that I went in going in knowing, but I worked out certain deals in my lease where that can't happen at least for 20 years. So that's why I say you have to get an attorney that will basically fight on your behalf so that you can have certain things in place so that you won't, be at a loss. And then included in my lease, he would not be able to open up another child care center. And again, he wouldn't be able to do it for another 20 years. So that is the risk that you take when you lease as opposed to owning.
But that's great advice. So, ladies, I want to transition into your journeys. I want to start with Shantae. Why did you want to start this business, and what was your journey like in starting the business? Just give us a little tidbits of some of the ups and downs that you faced as a business owner.
Well, this business was actually started because of the experience I had with my oldest daughter. I mean, we were shopping, and she fell in love with this shirt, and she wore this shirt to no end. Like, I had to peel this shirt off my daughter. And I went out and, looking for more things similar to that, and I just couldn't find anything. I went everywhere, every huge store you think. I could went online, and it was just very eye-opening to how little representation there was for Black girls. I mean, you have all the Disney princesses. You have just all sorts of variations, as we all know, of, children who aren't Black, and there was just nothing for her. So I said I'd do it myself. And as I mentioned again, I was working full-time, so it wasn't something that was easy. I didn't necessarily know anything about the business, so I started using every cost-effective resource that I could, and I got on YouTube University, and I watched everything I could. I started being mentored, and she was actually a toddler at this time, so I would drive to another city with her, and I would be mentored by different people and who ran different businesses in different industries, and I would have my baby right with me. So that was a challenge, because she was young. I was much younger when I started. Money was a challenge, being a mother, working full-time, and having the money to invest in different, like, apparel. But then eventually I learned about wholesale and things of that such, and different ways to take advantage of running a business and getting, tax deductions and things of that such. So there was difficulty in terms of advertising. When you first start a business, you think everybody's going to support you, and it doesn't work that way. So that was a challenge, understanding that everyone is not your customer. Everyone is not obligated to support you. You have to get out and you have to do the work. You have to find your audience. Pricing was difficult because people are accustomed to purchasing apparel at a retail price. They don't understand what goes into running a business and how difficult it is to make a profit when you first start, and a profit that's actually feasible that you can reinvest back into your business. So that was a challenge. And probably just the time, being a mom, working full-time and doing all the packing and shipping and customer service all myself. But over time, you get better, you learn more, you listen. I did a lot of listening to other people. I took in constructive criticism, and I got better, and I eventually developed a method that worked really good for me, and now I'm doing extremely well.
Excellent. I'm proud
so I hope that kind of...
It definitely did. I'm glad that you're pushing on. I did have a question about inventory. So how do you deal with your inventory, whether it be the supplies or the actual products?
Well, initially when I started, I purchased all my inventory wholesale, and I just used different programs online to manage inventory for me. Now I actually use a fulfillment company, whereas they do all the printing and shipping and packing for me. So that's a huge transition that I made. It saved me a lot of time. It saved me a lot of stress, and I was able to, now I can do so much more with my family. But those are things that you can literally see online. I can see when something is sold out or something is going out of stock, or the time frame that it takes. So you kind of prepare for these things. You kind of have to be proactive. You don't wait until those things occur. You kind of make sure you have the channels in place to kind of track that. So those are things that I can see, that I have visibility to online, and that I just communicate with my fulfillment center, and I make sure that things can continue to run smoothly.
Outstanding. And for those who are interested in purchasing some of Shantae's products, by tomorrow I'll have a link up on our resource page. Our resource page is dedicated to panelists who have been on the broadcast that we have had in the past, and there'll be links to their websites, their social media pages, and in some cases, if they have Amazon accounts, we'll have links to their Amazon where people can purchase their products. So we're going to jump to Jamila and tell us about your transition and your journey into the tech world.
Absolutely. So my journey started out thinking that something was wrong with me for liking comic books and video games and being heavily in the, quote, nerd culture. I went to Chicago public schools, and there weren't a ton of resources for us to pursue careers in tech. And thankfully, with the support of my family and my father working so many hours of overtime and purchasing a family computer for us to have that resource because it wasn't at school. So from there, I became so fascinated with tech and video games, and it opened a whole new world for me. And when I initially pursued my career, I majored in computer graphics and animation, and there was this program that's saying, hey, you came from an inner city school, you need to go through this summer program just to make sure that you have what you need to make it. But the irony of that is majority of us that went through, we were from inner city schools, but we end up graduating, completing programs compared to those that started freshman quarter. They didn't make it a year or two. So you kind of have to stand back and look and figure out, what does this mean in representation and resources. So I struggled with coding and technology concepts, and a lot of times I was the only woman and black woman in the room, and it's definitely a white male-dominated field. So I operate in impact and representation of minorities and women of color in STEM. Being an IT project manager in a lot of these spaces and leading initiatives, that's sort of how I got the name the Technicorn, because they don't believe the women of color and minorities are considered a mythical creature that doesn't exist. So I make it my business to let them know that, yes, unicorns do exist, and you're going to see a lot more of us. So I think it was important to have, that visibility there. So I operate in do speaking engagements. I've recently I spoke on a panel at the University of Chicago, Shy Women Tech Day. So I'm going to be doing the Shy Hack Day in a couple weeks. So I think that partnering with these organizations and sharing my story, getting the word out, and being a diversity and inclusion champion, addressing some of these issues that are in corporate, getting those resources to our communities and getting those partnerships in place is critical. So that's my mission and my statement on the stance for diversity. So it's something that I eat, sleep, and breathe. There's a lot of great organizations that have been very supportive of me, and I think I hear my fellow 40 under 40 sister on the line.
Yes, that was you.
Yes. So, organizations like this where we're funneling resources and coming together to propel each other forward are very critical. So that brought me into the space of the Technicorn and, working with students and, startups and advising and consulting.
All right, sounds excellent. And I do have a question for you. So when we talk about the struggles of getting brown boys and brown girls involved in tech, as they become adults and they work in tech, getting hired is one thing. But just when they're young, what are some of the challenges that young brown and girls and boys are facing as young people trying to get involved in tech?
Absolutely. I would say the curriculum as well, we have to expand that to critical thinking, problem solving, a lot of these skills that you would need to go into engineering, mathematics and science and tech, making sure that you're prepared and having those resources, because especially in Chicago, I'm not exactly sure about other cities, but when you go to some of our schools, the technology is so far behind, and it's how can you be prepared for curriculum when you don't have those resources? And then you may go to the north side that looks totally different from the south side of Chicago, and there's 2 iPads to one student, so there are issues there. But we fortunately have programs and that are in place, and I've done some work with Black Girls Code. I worked with them for about a year as their volunteer and events lead, and we put together hackathons and build a website in a day where parents can come and learn as well on what you need to have in place for your child to succeed, if they are interested in STEM careers. So exposing them at an early age. Programs like Page and Paxton, which is, Black-owned right here in Chicago, that exposes as early as preschool to concepts. So just to echo what some of the ladies have said already is, engaging them as soon as possible so that they are prepared. And, in the case of me, my career really started in tech, when I got to college and started my first coding class and struggled, almost failed, spent countless hours in tutoring just to play catch-up. So we have to get them ahead of the curve, and we have to have, our parents equipped with information and resources to make sure that happens.
And I agree 100%. So, Tony, tell us what your journey was like and why you chose to start Child Care Center that you currently have.
So I believe that a lot of business and ideas come from experience sometimes hardships or different things like that. So it was actually my older sister who I always say she was the brains in getting this particular business started. It came from a space where she was having her third child, and she just wasn't satisfied with the way that the Child Care Center were looking and how they were treating children and different things like that. And so she decided to take a house, an empty house, a vacant house, and she turned that into a home daycare and housed one of my aunts in it who was qualified and certified to open up to run a child care center, and it just took off from there. So it kind of was like a collective effort between her, myself, and my mom, and in total we have 5 child care centers. I speak on mine most often, but we have 5 in total in the south suburbs of Chicago. And it just came from that idea that my sister had to create a space that parents can be comfortable with that was in an actual facility, but gave a home-like atmosphere that provide different things that the children may or may not receive at home, which is meals and snacks and, and I always coin the phrase that we're not just a babysitting service. We actually pour into these children because we believe that they are teachable at a young age. So it came from that idea that my sister was unhappy with her findings in different child care centers.
Okay. So I have a question. We talked about it's not just a babysitting service, and Jamila mentioned about she didn't start working and getting involved in tech until an older age, her teenagers into college, and she says we need to get these kids involved at a younger age so they're not behind. So what is your facility doing? What is your program doing to incorporate technology with the services that you provide?
That's a great question. So right now, our children start from 6 weeks to 12 years old. We offer before and after school care for our children. And in our classrooms, ages 3 and up, we do have computers in every classroom because we see the value in having them to become somewhat tech savvy at a young age. And then we have different programs that the children are learning to use while working on the computer. So that's about as far as we're doing at this point. I would love to speak with her or someone else just to get, just to become more tech savvy myself and to have that start with the younger babies. But we're just teaching them the basics, how to learn a computer, what a mouse is, how to cut it on, how to treat it and care for it. Because we do have, and our children do start with that at 3 years old.
And last question about the facilities. Are you guys using smart boards with the kids?
No, not at this moment. We're not. And that's and again, it's because, like she mentioned, you go into certain areas and they do provide those things. I don't know how it is in other cities, because we do need to teach our people the importance of having the black dollars to stay and remain in our communities. And that's some of the things, that's some of the goals that I do have. But unfortunately, we have to work with what we have. A lot of my parents are low-income families. So, I fund a ton of things, and that's with any business, I'm sure. So, once we get the parents and the people in the community to understand that it's important to, buy in our community, not just at the child care center, but, come in our area and spend those dollars at your local grocery store and different things like that, then we will, I'll see the tax breaks and I'll be able to afford different things for my babies.
Got it. Excellent. And you guys will connect because I'm going to share all your information together. And the post that I put on Instagram about this broadcast, I tagged you guys in the post, so you'll be able to connect with each other as well. Just follow those tags, and you'll be able to link up. So I want to move on to Miss Shantae, and I want to know about business advice. We have some entrepreneurs who are listening to the broadcast and who will eventually hear the rebroadcast of this when it gets archived. So this will stay out there forever. So people who may pick it up that want to aspire to be small business owners, eventually large business owners, what advice would you give them for general advice? And then what advice would you give them that relates to owning a clothing company?
General advice. Let's see. Goodness, where do I start? I would probably say to get clear on exactly what you want to do. Sometimes we want to do too many things at once, and you practically end up overwhelming yourself. So get clear. You don't necessarily have to take the route everyone else took. I had a business plan, but I think a lot of people get caught up in things of that nature because everyone else has that, and they pretty much get stuck. So one thing I always tell people is start exactly where you are. You may not necessarily be equipped with everything that you need to know, but just start. Time waits for nobody. It passes, and if you don't do anything with it, it will do something with you whether you like it or not. So I would just say start where you are. Don't allow people to make you feel small. Learn your industry. Don't be afraid to do the research. A lot of times I feel like we live in the pick your brain age. Everyone wants to leverage other people's knowledge or their platforms, and they don't want to necessarily do the work. So don't be afraid to do the work. In terms of starting a clothing line, I would say be sure to, just cross your T's and dot your I's. It's not as easy as it looks, but just do the research, get the proper licenses, get your business accounts, get all of your domains. I mean, I have copyrights. I have all of my images copyrighted. I have my business federally registered and trademarked. So make sure you handle the basics. You may come across times where somebody may infringe on your intellectual property. You want to have legal advice or, things of that such available to you. You don't want to be scrambling when you get in a bind. So I would just say to do the research. And if you don't know, there's platforms out there, there's organizations out there that are willing to help you for free. We live in the age of information, so just do the work.
Great advice. And Jamila, let's give some general advice to aspiring entrepreneurs, and then let's give some specific advice to those same people in terms of how it relates to tech and being involved in the tech industry. And I know tech is huge, but you can make that as specific as you like.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in my journey. I am just embarking on the entrepreneurship. I still have one foot in corporate and one foot on this journey. So I would say, just to echo, go at your own pace. Don't look at everyone else and, see they've been in business for 20 years. Run your own race. It's a marathon. So I would just say, do your research and, show up. A lot of the opportunities I've been granted and speaking opportunities and panels have been just showing up to events that maybe I knew nothing about, didn't know anyone, and, just connecting, passing out business cards and things like that. It's also the importance of mentors and mentorship. I speak a lot about, we live in this age of me and how can I move forward? What about my success? But a lot of the times we're so busy looking forward and reaching forward that we forget about who's behind us. So I always say, as you reach your hand forward, you reach your hand back to those behind you. So I've taken some amazing young ladies under my wing on the journey, even though it doesn't feel I made it far yet, but I want them to kind of experience and learn from me and my mistakes along the way. So that's just something that, I sort of speak about. As far as tech, I would say you have to be aware every day. It's always changing, especially as we've seen this boom of Bitcoin. And a lot of people are jumping before doing some research, and so I just advise, do your research, read, connect with others, and as we pursue a career in tech, find your niche. Looking forward, business intelligence is going to be huge. Data analytics is going to be huge for every business. We're starting to see drones, artificial intelligence. So don't fall behind the curve. Make sure that you're reading, you're connecting, you're going to these seminars, you're staying up to date on what certifications that you need to propel in your career, and just sharing information and resources.
Excellent advice. So, Tony, again, general advice for business owners and aspiring business owners, and then specific advice for anyone who wants to go into daycare facilities or education.
And I hate to say this again, but coming behind these two fantastic women, my sentiments are pretty much the same on a lot of things that they spoke on. And what she said was go at your own pace. Sometimes social media will have you believing that the road to entrepreneurship is really easy, but it's not. Do the things that you are supposed to do so that your business can be what it is to you and not look at anybody else. And I think that specifically if you want to open up a child care center, going back what she said, my business started taking off once I started putting myself out there as well. I started, like she said, I started going to networking events and linking up with different women and understanding the value of sharing information and partnering up with different people. And those things are very important as a marketing tool for your business, but specifically for child care centers. Make sure you're up to date with your licensing. Do things by the book. Don't try to cut corners, especially when it comes to – and see, I've worked in banking for years before I got into child care, and I always say I worked in two of the most important industries when you're dealing with people money and when you're dealing with people children. And don't cut any corners, handle things the way that you would want to be handled. And I always, I have monthly meetings with my staff, and I say that we not only have to be sympathetic, but we have to be empathetic to what these different families and children may be experiencing. Treat these babies. I treat those kids like they're my kids. Those are all my daughters, all my sons, and I tell them to do the same thing. You have to really get your licensing in order. Hire qualified staff members that have a love and a passion and a heart for children, because you'll find that you'll run into less issues if you do. And it's no joke to really be mandated by the state to have certain procedures and orders, because they'll be all in your business. So do things the way that it's supposed to be done, and you will experience way less issues. And a lot of times I find that when I do talk to different women that have child care centers, they learn the hard way by trying to cut corners. And when I say cut corners, I don't mean mishandling children. I mean with paperwork. We're dealing with children. We have two sides to my particular business and my particular field. Yes, we have the children's side and the safety side and the education side with dealing with the children specifically, but it's a lot of paperwork that goes into running the child care center, a ton of it. So if you're organized, and I have a great team. I have an awesome team. I have an excellent director and assistant director, and without them, I probably would be crazy, because they really keep me together.
Right, and that's very important advice. And then with all of that paperwork and all of that filings that you have to do, storage is very important, and how you store and sort things out.
Storage I know is extremely important, yes.
Right, so I know that's another. Right, correct. So, guys, I want to ask you what the future looks like. Short-term, long-term goals. Where do you want to take your businesses, and do you have aspirations of starting other businesses and maybe even in other fields? Just tell us a little bit about what you guys are thinking about. We'll start with Shante.
Let's see. My short-term goals, I've actually not necessarily started to, but I've been networking with a lot of different people in different industries so that I can kind of start to explore different opportunities, not just for my business, but for myself. I'm still fairly young, so I don't want to necessarily put myself in a box. I've been blogging. I've been doing a lot of interacting with other people, even mentoring, and I didn't see myself doing that. And it's just basically putting myself in the position and exposing myself and me just organically coming across opportunities. So kind of what Jamila mentioned in terms of like reaching back, I've really been wanting to help other people get started, help other people get clear about what they want to do and get caught up to speed. I spent a lot of time, almost a year before I even launched my business, just researching, and I didn't really realize how much expertise I had in my business until I started coming across people who I perceived to be so much farther than me and so much more established than me, needing help from me. So in that, I kind of, gained insight and gained awareness how I could be helping other people that need to get started or, just need that advice. In addition to that, I would say long term, I want to get into a retail space, but I wanted my numbers right. A lot of people just want that visibility, but they don't understand that profit margins and what they purchase at is completely different than doing it yourself. So at this point, because I've done the work and I know that my numbers are correct, I want to get into a retail space just to have that visibility to kind of reach audiences that I may not reach on my own. In addition to that, as I mentioned, my daughters run their own snow cone business. They've done a ton of business fairs, a ton of events. They're licensed. They have their LLC. So we eventually want to develop their own shaved ice machine so I can kind of get them in a different market, and I want to, create generational wealth. So that's a big goal of mine, is just to continue to nurture my daughters and work on their business as well.
Outstanding. And Jamila, what is your short-term and long-term goals?
So in the short term and long term, I want to make sure that there are as many tech unicorns as possible. So right now, I've been fortunate enough to have some amazing partnerships that are going to ensure that happens. And as Tony mentioned, we just joined 40 Under 40, a great, amazing, inspirational group of women focused on propelling, women of color forward and in our initiatives. So, short term, I'll be partnering with Adler Planetarium and After School Matters for Chicago Hack Day. And most recently, I've done some work with the American Heart Association for Go Red, Go STEM. So building upon those foundations and the outreach using my platform to make sure that those resources and information are readily available. Long term, I want to get some homegrown programs that maximize impact in Chicago. A lot of times I feel there's a lot of organizations that kind of just come through like a tour stop and say, yeah, we have a presence in Chicago, but I want to make sure that there's purposeful impact and programs here that are here to stay and not just, here for a weekend and just say, we have a presence here. So through that, I'll be doing consulting and building programs for students to get access to resources to pursue careers in STEM.
Sounds great, and I hope you succeed in all of that. And Tony, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
As far as my short-term goals, is I just want to continue to build centers and communities that has a need for child care centers that actually, want to pour into children, of all ages and open up different after-school facilities. We're in the process of trying to get an after-school facility started with more of like a YMCA. Well, I'm sorry, that is actually my long-term goal as well. So we want to get a community center together in an area that needs it, because in my particular area, we don't have any community centers and different things like that for children to come to, like that's a safe haven. In certain areas of Chicago, it's riddled with violence and different things like that. And, I believe that if we had certain centers and places for our children and our youth to go to, then we wouldn't see as much as we see. I also have a mentoring program from working with the after-school children for so long. I've been doing this for 12 years now. I see a need to reach down and touch young girls at an early age. And not to say that boys don't need this as well, and maybe I'll partner with some other mentoring programs for men, of men that help boys. But right now my focus is the young girls between the ages of 12 to 18 and really get them going in the right direction. So short term, continue to just build centers in areas that need it, and long term to eventually develop a community center.
Great. So you guys have got some really good plans in mind. What I want to do now is, it's just one question left before we end the broadcast, but I want people to know, once again, who you are, how they can find you guys and support your products and services. So we'll start with Jamila. Tell people who you are, what you do, and any of your social media that you want to give out, you can give out, and how people can find you.
Absolutely. So Jamila Parham, and I operate under the alias Detect Unicorn. So I do STEM advocacy. I'm a diversity and inclusion champion. I recently was recognized by Verizon as one of the top 10 professionals making impact in their field. So I do that through panels and providing resources and mentorship. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jamila Parham, Jamila, Parham, Parham. And you also can visit my website at jamilaparham.com, and I have a contact form. You can reach out to me on my site or via social media.
And guys, once again, I'll have all this information in the resource pages as well. So if you weren't able to get all of that, if you weren't able to pause this broadcast when you listen to it later, just go to blackpillradio.com, and in the resource section, all of that information will be there. So let's move on to Shantae. Tell the people who you are, what you do, and how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, my name is Shantae Toad. I'm based out of Phoenix. I own Cocoa Pie Clothing, which is a line for girls of color, specifically black girls. I also have two amazing kidpreneurs, Michaela and Kennedy, who operate Ken and Kate Snow Cones. You can reach them at Ken and Kate Snow Cones, or myself. I'm everywhere at CocoPieClothing.com, COCOPIE Clothing, and that's across all social media platforms. It's the same.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Ms. Tony, tell people a little bit about you, what you do, and how they can get in touch with you.
And I am Tony Nichelle Robinson, and I own and operate a profitable child care center in the south suburbs of Chicago. I actually have partnered with my mom and my sister. We have 5 altogether. We have 2, if you're familiar with the particular areas. We have one in Linwood, 2 in Sauk Village, 1 in Burnham, and then 1 in Park Forest, and all of these are, as I said, located in the south suburbs of Chicago. Also, I have a mentoring program, Pretty and Posh, where we teach different values and principles to young girls from ages 12 to 18 years old. And when we teach about love and respect, poise and confidence, dressing for success, and the secret, which is manifestation of your hopes, dreams, and desires through God's word and prayer. Because actually, without Him, none of this would be possible. And you guys can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Tony Nichelle. That's TONIENESHELLE. And then my Instagram handle is IM.Tony, TONIE. And you can also find me on my website at TonyNichelle.com, where you would have access to the website for my child care facility as well.
Thank you, ladies, for joining the panel and the broadcast. You guys gave out some wonderful information, and I look forward to working with you guys again in the future. As always, to our listeners, please subscribe, please share, please like, please join our movement and what we're trying to do in terms of Black First and making big things happen for us and within our Black communities and Black businesses. As always, our broadcast is every first and third Sunday morning of each month, and we'll see you guys on the 17th, where we'll be talking to independent music artists who are making positive soul Black music. As always, be safe and peace.